In Peru, demonstrators against the government of Dina Boluarte carried out and continued police repression in Lima as the Congress is set to resume the debate to move to elections to 2023. The legal year 2023 began in Brazil with a formal ceremony led by President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva at the Supreme Court after it was destroyed following the coup attempt on January the 8th. The Palestinian people gathered in the streets of Ramallah and Gaza to reject the visit of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to the occupied territories, aiming increasing Israeli violence in the area. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Against the government of Dina Boluarte continue police repression in Lima. During the protests, citizens have denounced that the police has fired tear gas bombs against the demonstrators. Popular organizations activists denounced the police attacks by surrounding demonstrators while they expressed the rejection of the government and asked for the resignation of Boluarte for encouraging repressions. Demonstrators also accused the police of physical aggressions and the attempted arrest of the journalists covering the protests in Manco Capac Square in the Peruvian capital. Meanwhile, the Peruvian Congress will try to resume on Wednesday the debate on a constitutional bill to advance general elections to October 2023 after having proposed the instance of a third time due to the lack of consensus on the issue. While this proposal is supported and promoted by the sector of the parliamentary right, the leftist benches demand that the project include the holding of a referendum on a Constituent Assembly. In order to approve the proposal, must obtain 87 votes in favor out of 130 members of the Peruvian Congress. If approval, the proposal will have to be submitted to another vote in the following legislature, as it is a constitutional reform. The National Electoral Council in Ecuador assured on Wednesday that everything is ready for the sectional elections and the referendum that will take place in this nation on February the 5th. After the two simulations, the authorities reaffirmed that the computer systems are prepared for the date as well as the members of the polling stations, which will take about 6 hours to count the votes. The agency will maintain the results in real time through 3 channels: webpage, mobile application, and social networks. 23 prefects and vice prefects, 221 mayors, over 800 urban and over 400 rural councillors, as well as 4,109 members of the parish council will be defined. Ecuadorians will also elect the 7 members of the Council of Citizens, Participation and Social Control, and will respond to the questions of the referendum proposed by Lazo's government, which has been rejected by several sectors, among them indigenous peoples, teachers, and students. On Tuesday, the President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, and the Vice President of the nation, Rosario Murillo, headed an official ad in Managua in which they delivered 150 Russian-made buses to the fleet of urban transport vehicles of the country. The ad was attended by different presidents of whose cooperatives in Managua, as well as from departments such as Chinandega, Leon, and Titipatapa, in addition to different carriers from different parts of the country. The president points out that the vehicles will be distributed among different departments and municipalities. Ortega emphasized that cooperation on buses between his government and Russia has been materialized since 2009. The legal year 2023 began in Brazil with representatives of the judiciary meeting at the Supreme Court after it was destroyed following the coup attempt on January the 8th. Brazilian President Luis Lula da Silva and other public officials participated in the formal ceremony that opened the legal year. The meeting took place with a group of public entities designed by the Brazilian Constitution to carry out the country's judicial function. The gathering includes representatives of trade unions and other state bodies. Political, social, and trade unions organizations in Argentina called on Wednesday for a popular march against the persecution of left leaders and to support the impeachment trial against a member of the Supreme Court. The demonstration will take place on a Wednesday afternoon at 5 p.m. local time outside Buenos Aires courthouse under the slogan "Out with the Judicial Mafia." Demonstrators will be advocating for the democratization of the judiciary and against a judicial bench that has been corrupted by the corrupted powers of the country. We'll take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. A powerful winter storm has swept through the eastern coast of the United States, affecting at least 7 states and leaving more than 200,000 users without power in the region. Texas Governor Greta Abbott said that the National Weather Service predicted freezing rain in several locations in the country, assuring that temperatures will reach sub-zero levels. Authorities indicate that weather conditions have caused the closing of schools, the cancellation of more than 1,500 flights throughout the territory, and caused multiple tornadoes from Florida to Maine. In the U.S., Third Nichols, who's dead at the hands of police in Memphis, led a second-degree murder charges against 5 officers, will be remembered at a funeral service on Wednesday. Nichols was subdued and yet continuously beaten after a traffic infraction by Memphis police on January the 7th. Mourners will gather in Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church to celebrate Nichols' life rather than focus on the hard-working footage of the breathing that left him in a hospital bed for days before his death. Many people are expected to attend the service, among them Tamika Pullman, whose daughter Breonna Taylor was fatally shot during a police raid on March 2020. Also expected is Philo's Floyd, young brother of George Floyd. Lastly, Vice President Kamala Harris will also attend the funeral, according to the White House officials, joining other senior-level Biden's administration officials. On Tuesday, France saw a second day of massive protests and strike against the government pension reform, which aims to raise the retirement age in the country. Huge crowds marched across France on Tuesday to say no to President Emmanuel Macron's plan to make people work longer before retirement. Over 1.2 million people mobilized to express their rejection to the initiative, according to the Interior Minister, while unions estimate over 2.8 million people took part nationwide. In this context, Paris reacted to the second day of nationwide protests against the French government's pension reform.
I hope they listen because they are elected to represent the people to begin with. When the people don't agree, maybe they should listen to them. So I wish them well. I think there is a real political problem of representativeness, and unfortunately, we elect people who make decisions that people don't agree with. I think we need a kind of Swiss style system where every important decision is submitted to the people, and it's the people who decide, not some guys up there in their offices.
Russian Igor, the dominant spokesman of the state-owned pipeline transport company Transneft, reported this Wednesday that an attempt to attack an oil pumping station in the Dobruch pipeline took place on Tuesday. Dundon added that the fall of the projectile on the station's premise did not cause any casualties. However, the incident caused damage and is being repaired. Despite this, he noted that the Dobruch pipeline is operating normally. Russian emergency services reported that the projectile had been fired from Ukraine and fell in the fall of Bringshan Oblast near the village of Mamain in the urban district of Novosibirsk. Russia recorded the trade volume it had previous the package sanctions imposed by the U.S. and the European Union on February 2022. The Central Bank of the Russian Federation noted that it managed to maintain the ruble value and financial market stability, indicating that Moscow's foreign trade have returned to the previous pre-sanctions level. On February 2022, Washington and the member nations of the European Union imposed a package of sanctions on Russia after its launch its military operation in Ukraine to stop Ukrainian settling on Donetsk and Luhansk. The later two territories also became independent from Ukraine in 2014 following a coup in the country. We have more news coming up after this financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Chinese Foreign Minister spokeswoman Mao Ning said on Wednesday that the Asia-Pacific is not an arena for geopolitical contents and that its Cold War mentality and bloc confrontations are not welcome. Her comments came after North Atlantic Treaty Organization Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg labeling China as a threat to the global security during his visit to Japan. In response to the joint statement issued together by Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and NATO chief, the Chinese government official urged the relevant parties to put an end to the China threat narrative and attempts to insane confrontations.
Has always been a defender of world and regional peace and stability. On hotspot issues, we have always been active in promoting peace and dialogue to de-escalate the situation. NATO should seriously consider the role it has played in maintaining European security. What I would like to emphasize is that the Asia-Pacific is not a battlefield for geopolitical competition and does not welcome Cold War mentalities or factional confrontation.
On Wednesday, streets and businesses in Myanmar were deserted as citizens carried out silent protests against the military junta on the second anniversary of its coup. Organizers of the silent strike asked residents not to leave their homes between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pictures posted to social media shown empty streets and businesses in Yangon, usually bustling with people and traffic, as well as desert roads in other locations around the country. Meanwhile, protesters also gathered outside Myanmar, the Myanmar embassies in different countries such as Thailand and Philippines and South Korea to voice their opposition to the outgoing military rule. In a statement, their country's parallel civilian government made up of disposed parliamentarian and activists said that the people of Myanmar will never renounce their right to freedom and peace. On Wednesday, the Palestinian people gathered with flags and banners in the streets of Ramallah and Gaza to reject the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to the occupied territories. The U.S. official was visited a region to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. At the protest, the attendants shouted slogans in defense of human rights and demand the U.S. government stop supporting Israel apartheid. Those present expressed in their banners their total rejection of the U.S. official's visit, indicating that the United States must hold Israel responsible and accountable for its crimes according to local and official resources. The agreement between the U.S. representative and the Palestinian leader ended without any kind of agreement. Now we have come to the end of this brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.